I would like to hear, and our audience would like to hear more about what are the EIB priorities in Ukraine, how they changed over this period from emergency support to strategic reconstruction and financing, and what are the role and the mission of EIB in Ukraine. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me and giving me this wonderful platform to better introduce the activities of my institution, the European Investment Bank, to the distinguished audience. It's truly an honor and a pleasure. And I'll start from the basics, if I may, right? Because believe it or not, after 7.5 years in the bank, sometimes I still get confused with EBRD, with other institutions, and so on. And this is mostly due to the fact that the European Investment Bank was once a best kept secret of the European Union. A bank that was founded in 1957, as some people like to say, in the midst of the beautiful Luxembourg forest and did its work very, very quietly, right? So, just for those of you who perhaps know a little bit less about us, we are the Bank of the European Union. We're the financing arm of the Union, mostly inside the European Union. So, even here in Poland, we have a vast array of activities, right? 90% of what we do, and that is about 80 billion in financing each year, is inside the European Union. And 10% is outside of EU borders, where Ukraine is, of course, our top priority as our future member. So, in many ways, the European Investment Bank is part of the EU integration process. It's a bridge between the Union itself and the candidates that are trying to get closer to being full members of the club, right? And this is how we work in Ukraine as well. And when the full-scale invasion started in February 2022, I was actually not working on Ukraine yet. I was doing a completely different job, but went as a volunteer to the border of my country, Slovakia, to welcome refugees and help with the efforts in the initial days. The bank typically doesn't mobilize this quickly, but within basically 2-3 weeks of the full-scale invasion, the EIB disbursed almost 700 million to Ukraine in emergency support. And this was a first big signal from the EU, from the EU Bank, just how much we support Ukraine, how seriously we're taking this. And we actually stand ready to go above and beyond our processes, procedures, and standards to disperse this urgent envelope. But a lot of things have changed since then. So just to give you a sense of scale, after the initial weeks, obviously it was not just about emergency, it was about recovery and restoration. And this is what I found absolutely amazing, that Ukraine, despite the fact that it's at war, it's reconstructing itself and it's innovating in the process, right? So lots of what we do is very careful balancing. Of course, we need to address emergencies, crises. We can discuss the energy sector, right, which is really under heavy attacks at the moment. But we also have to give people a sense of hope that schools can reopen. And it's not just schools as they were before. It's schools with shelters, it's schools with nutritious meals, that patients, that wounded soldiers, veterans can be treated in well-functioning hospitals with top-tier equipment, that there's an intensive care unit, perhaps in the basements underground, which is also something that I've seen in one of the hospitals that we have had the honor to finance. It's roads, it's railways. So, for example, in August, I was opening with my colleagues, with President Zelensky, with the European Commission, the first fully Ukrainian segment of the Euro-Rail, the 1435 millimeter gauge for Ukrainian railways between Chop and Uzhhorod. Only 22 kilometers, but I think it's a very powerful signal. We're trying our best to connect meaningfully Ukraine to the EU. And this, I think, shows the direction of travel. So I'm a banker. I'm supposed to give you figures. Since the full-scale invasion, 4 billion invested. For those of you who wonder, well, what does this mean in practice? You can sign a loan, but has anything actually been done and finished? Or is it still waiting on someone's account? So 2.7 billion out of the 4 is already disbursed. This means that the money is not a pledge, it's not a commitment, it's actually translating into social infrastructure, into support to the energy sector, for example, to Hydroenergo, Ukroenergo. This is really critical right now as the energy system is really under threat ahead of the winter season. So to those that sometimes say, well, unless it's budget support, if you really want to do long-term investment projects, infrastructure in Ukraine today, it's going to be difficult and it won't work. I will say no, because every 2 weeks we are completing a project. Every 2 weeks, I have the opportunity to travel somewhere to meet with the local community or to meet with a company. Either it's a piece of infrastructure, I gave you a few examples, or it's a small and medium-sized company, for example, with also veterans employed that is doing very interesting things. One of the ones that I visited recently was actually manufacturing toys. Right? So children can actually socialize, they can play, and they can imagine and dream even in these conditions. So things are happening, right? And that sense of hope that we're trying to create through these projects is extremely important, maybe even more than the emergencies. This is what we tend to focus on because it's most present in the headlines, right? I mean, you see catastrophic pictures and videos of what's being done, especially now in the energy realm. But at the same time, as a parallel track, we always try to maintain this focus on long-term restoration, recovery, and we're testing things for the full-scale reconstruction that will take place when there's a just and sustainable cessation of hostilities.